everybody should be paying attention to here in the state of Pennsylvania. It's Admiral Joe Sestak. Admiral, welcome back to the Union Edge.
Charles, thanks for having me. Thanks.
Always a pleasure. We appreciate it, Admiral, and we appreciate your service to our country in the military and afterwards. Thank you very much, sir. We appreciate that.
Thanks.
So what's going on these days? Pat Toomey's out there. What's he talking about? And, what's the real answer?
Well, it was interesting. He was out there just at the end of last week talking about the unemployment rate of veterans and said it's inconceivable to him why it's higher than it is for civilians in the workforce. I then went on radio to reply, and I made it very clear that it's what's really inconceivable is that Senator Toomey actually voted a few years ago against the jobs bill for veterans. It is higher. And that's why when these vets come home, we should be able to help them transition into a job.
Admiral,
and he voted against it.
You are a kind person, and this is why I could never be a politician, because you're being very kind. I have to tell you, I'm a little outraged that Senator Toomey doesn't understand why veterans, combat veterans, men and women that have spent not one tour but many tours in Iraq and Afghanistan, that have PTSD, maybe to a small degree, to a slight degree, or to a more taxing degree, are having a problem finding jobs, especially when so many of our corporate friends out there are saying that, oh, well, those U.S. military people, they're broken, they're damaged, we shouldn't hire them. Admiral, I think it is a disgrace that a politician doesn't understand those things and isn't willing to talk about those things and isn't willing to reach out to the very people making campaign contributions to their campaign and say, you know what? They're not damaged goods. They're not broken. They're productive members of our community, and we should honor them. That's just me.
It's interesting you bring that up. I just hired a vet on my staff here, and I go out for veterans because I know that they're willing to be accountable. Tell me what to do, and then hold me accountable for doing it, not for words. Senator Toomey will use words. He actually said, I'm concerned about the higher suicide rate for veterans. You brought it up, PTSD, the challenges they have. Well, guess what? He voted against 2 years ago the mental health benefits bill, which actually had funding to treat them for the post-traumatic stress disorder, traumatic brain injury. As you know, every year I go and visit a prison to visit vets that are there. Half of them are there because of a drug or alcohol-related crime that often was tied to PTSD. They came home from Vietnam. No one even knew what it was at the time. So to have a senator who actually voted to send us to war, as Senator Toomey did, and has voted against every veterans appropriations bill since that time as a congressman through a senator up to last December is inexcusable.
Admiral, and the thing is they will wrap themselves in the flag and they will say, oh, I love veterans and God bless America and all this kind of other stuff when, in fact, they don't care. And that's my opinion. And that's me saying it, not you, sir. How do we change this?
We have to change out Senator Toomey. Look, Senator Toomey actually voted not to protect our veterans, National Guard and Reserve, who have been called up, sent to war in Afghanistan and Iraq, where they go for 12 months from bankruptcy. That we could put it off till they come home and could get their small business going again. He voted against their interest. This is a democracy. He is a representative right now, but he doesn't represent veterans, or does he not represent women or small businesses or labor or unions or anyone. He represents Wall Street for where he used to work. He worked for a Chinese billionaire in China, a billionaire who said democracy in America is not good. Put us down. My take on it is we do need to do what we do in democracies, get a new representative. It's why I'm running against Senator Toomey. He doesn't represent Pennsylvanians.
Well, there you go. And sir, I agree with you that our interests are not being represented in Washington, D.C. by some, and that's for sure. Admiral, I want to ask you a question. I mean, this whole thing about veterans and jobs is very important. You know it, I know it. fully supporting the VA hospitals. And some of the legislation that's out there is also very important. How can we try and take protections away from employees when it was actually employees that blew the whistle on some of the things that were happening in the VA? If we take away those protections, we don't have whistleblowers. We don't have anybody standing up for the veterans. What do we got to do with that?
Yeah, look, we all know that every institution has problems and challenges. And the VA in Philadelphia, as you know, really did have some. There were wounds that were in the legs of some veterans where we found that they were actually had some maggots that were falling out. But we can fix those things because when we step back and look at what the VA and their employees do, understand that the risk of death is lower for a veteran if they're treated in the VA hospital than a civilian hospital under Medicare Advantage. That kind of care is done by its employees. Look, a veteran is much more likely to receive recommended care than a veteran does in a non-veteran hospital. And in fact, there's better care for chronic conditions, and they cost the taxpayer 20% less in a VA hospital than in Medicare. Those are done by the outstanding citizens who often are veterans, some of them, who work to care for our veterans. Sure, are there some problems? You have to understand that the VA hospital system was underfunded for close to 8 years before we got elected, as I was in a wave that went down there in 2007 and voted the largest increase that was needed to fix this deficit in the history of the VA, to take care of traumatic brain injuries that were coming back. And therefore, with the right resources and the right skill level from the people, yes, the VA is performing to those statistics I just gave you. You get in there, you really do, on the whole, get good care. Let's clean the problems we have, just like any other institutions, but understand so many of them, where I actually had my appendix taken out, was taken care of excellently by those employees of the VA.
Absolutely, Admiral. I can't say enough about the dedicated men and women that are working there. Not the policymakers. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the dedicated men and women where the rubber meets the ground, where the employee or the veteran meets the other veteran. And that's an all too important thing that I think is forgotten. Admiral, we got about 30 seconds left. Anything else we should know?
You've hit something on the head at the beginning of this discussion. Not just about vets. It's about people. Far too often, representatives like Senator Toomey forget that it's about people, above party, above type, above themselves, above those who have power, the establishment, whether it's Wall Street or whether it's the leadership of one's party. More than anything else, I want to represent people of the great state of Pennsylvania. It's not about my party's leadership. It's not about the establishment. It is about serving them. And I'd be willing to be held accountable, losing my job, if that's what it takes, to vote in support of them so they can be all they can be. And that's where Senator Toomey misses the boat. How could he vote to send us to war, Charles? Visit my aircraft carrier, and then come home and vote against every single Veterans Affairs Appropriations Bill as a congressman and up as a senator through December? How could he do that and say he cares about taking care of veterans?
I'm not sure how you can do that, at least with a straight face, but that's another story. Admiral, how do we find out more about you?
JoeSestak.com. Just go on the website, JoeSestak.com, SESTAK. And just to bring back the memory of being in the military, Sierra Echo, Sierra Tango, Alpha Kilo. Remember those days, Charles?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
Even my daughter sometimes says to me, Daddy, and she'll go, Delta Alpha, Delta Delta Yankee.
There you go. Absolutely. And next time, sir, you were not a flyer, were you?
I had command of aircraft carrier battle group, and I'll tell you, the first time I went up in an F-14 with them, I came back and I said to the head aviator, now I understand why you guys don't like paperwork. You go up there for that thrill, and there's nothing like it. We flew over the desert, and about 100 feet up, upside down, I said, wow.
There you go. And next time I'm going to pull your chain about that just a little bit, sir. But
Okay.
in the meantime, Admiral, thank you very much for being with us today. We appreciate it. Admiral Joe Sestak, candidate for Senate in the Pennsylvania. I'm Charles Showalter. You're listening to the Union Edge Laborers Talk Radio.